Hi Chris, how are you?
Good evening, Rod. Yes, I'm well. I've had a few days away and we've had some gorgeous weather here. Lots of autumnal sunshine and a little bit of breeze. So yeah, all is well. And it's episode 197 and it's the 3rd of November. How was the world with you?
Yeah, gorgeous weather is not something I'd apply really. I drove to Scotland last week. It was all right on the way up. It was not on the way back. It was damp, would be underselling it. I think I saw him out a couple of times building a variety of arcs, frankly.
Wow,
so
okay.
yeah.
Did you need a boat more than a car?
Yeah, I definitely needed an outboard engine at one point.
Yeah, that's not good. And it's not pleasurable driving in the weather, is it, like that? Because you're so focused, I think, on concentration. I find it very draining.
It is, although, again, one of the joys of adaptive cruise control in a car is that, you feel like you've got somebody else helping you out a little bit. So I set the speed limit where it was appropriate to do so, and I just let the car do it and kept a close eye on it. I did find it a little more relaxing, although the slow lane on the motorway with heavy rain when you get massive puddles building up is unpleasant.
Yep. This next statement's going to surprise and annoy. I've never used adaptive cruise control.
I don't know what to say to that, really.
I didn't think you would. I don't know if I've got it on my current cars, but I probably had it on my last car. I don't know.
Certainly had it on your BMW, yeah.
I'd have thought so. It had lots of toys, but I'm not a big cruise control person. I do use it in certain places, but I'm not that bothered by it.
But adaptive cruise control, where it actually keeps the distance from the car in front of you, not just the speed?
I've just never used it. I like to be in control.
Well, you're still in control. That's the point. You keep your hands on the wheel, but it's an extra thing, particularly in bad weather, that gives you that little bit more.
I did say that statement would annoy you, but I'm sorry. I don't know. I can't explain why I haven't used it. I just haven't used it. I don't know.
Why haven't you got a Model T Ford where you don't have any of these mod cons that,
I think I do have. I've got quite old cars, remember now, so I don't have cruise control on my oldest car, but on my one that's only 10 years old, I think it's got basic cruise control.
Just mind blown.
Sorry.
Should we do some follow-up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's change the subject really quickly. That could be a whole car corner on why Chris doesn't use things. Okay, follow-up. While I was on my long epic drive to Scotland and back, I obviously had to listen to lots of podcasts. I was surprised for the first time on a Goal Hanger podcast, so the same network that gives us Rest It's Politics and things like that there was an advert for Apple, and it was for Macs particularly. And I don't think I've ever come across an Apple advert on a podcast.
No. That sounds quite odd to me. Yes, so they had an Audible advert, not as Inaudible the books, but a spoken word advert for Macs on a podcast. That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was really unusual.
I wonder why they're doing that.
Yeah, you think it's an interesting, maybe our analytics say, I mean, let's face it, they've got all the podcast analytics, haven't they, for what sort of people listen to podcasts, are listening on iPhones, and they're trying to get them to buy Macs as well. I just thought, and I genuinely haven't come across that before.
Maybe it's got that bad that they're trying to boost their sales.
Could be interesting, although we're going to talk about their money later, and unless this is casting a net for the future, it's certainly not a problem for them right now.
I'm not sure it's going to be a problem for them for the next 20 years, because even if they don't do that great, they've been shoring up enough cash. They'll be all right.
Yeah, they can just swim in their money pile. Moving on, I don't know about you, but I've noticed that the iOS keyboard is particularly bad at the moment.
Yes, 100%. Wholeheartedly agree. It's very frustrating to say the least.
It's very difficult to type almost anything. And obviously this upset this user on YouTube, Michi Neko Michi, far more than it was upsetting us, because he actually sat and videoed himself typing in slow motion and pulled out all the times his keyboard got his movements wrong at 120 frames per second, slowed to quarter speed. And it almost always gets what you're typing wrong. It's even when you type in the right place, it picks up the wrong letter. So it's not just you or me. This is an actual thing.
Yeah, I thought it was just me. And then after seeing this, I feel a little bit more relieved. I think of it's not just me. Because this is very frustrating, and it seems to happen a lot. And I am running the latest beta on my phone, 26.1, which probably comes out this evening. We're recording on November the 3rd. And it's not fixed. It's no better. It was driving me bonkers at the weekend. So what are Apple doing? Like, the keyboard was the one thing when they sold us the iPhone, it felt like they'd got it really right, because they convinced lots of people with hardware keyboards to ditch it and go software, and the rest of the world went that way. But we seem to have regressed a little bit.
Yeah, quite a lot actually. This was the whole pitch by Steve Jobs that a third of your screen has always been taken up by the keyboard, but we've got it right. We spent a lot of time on it. It's got haptics, it's got feedback, it's got keyboard clicky noises. Well, now, and it's not a hardware recognizer thing on the device, it's a software interpretation thing on the device, and that's not good enough.
But what have they done? That's it. How have they broken this? How's it gone? Has Liquid Glass made it worse?
I think it's been bad the last 3 OS versions, frankly, but it's certainly noticeably worse than 26.
Yeah, I would concur with that statement. And what was annoying in the previous betas, they had like a little line around the keyboard, so the keyboard width got even smaller. And I was like, that's not going to help. Like, the keyboard's already pretty small. So it's frustrating that it's got worse, definitely.
And that's one thing from Android, is the Apple keyboard is worse than what you get on Android, particularly Google's default, I think it's Gboard is their default keyboard on Android phones. So they're already behind, and stuff like this is just not helping, and it's vastly frustrating to every user. This isn't just a pro user thing. Every user uses the keyboard all the time. Did
the team that brought us the butterfly keyboard suddenly start working on the iPhone? Quite pleased with that one.
That's a very good joke. I quite like that. I think we should move on before I chuckle too much about it. Should we talk about Google instead?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So Google has finally, and we've been reporting on this for a while, had to make its changes to the Play Store following its antitrust case with Epic. All this boils down to is them having to do the same thing that Apple has done, really. It's only a little crack in the armor, but what it says in the terms of service, that to ensure compliance with the injunction, we've made the following changes. They will not prohibit developers from communicating with users about the availability of pricing outside of the Google Play Store. Good. Yay.
You mean give your customers a choice so they can make an informed decision of where they purchase?
Yeah. And
crazy.
It is crazy, and it obviously resulted in better things for us as Apple users, certainly, well, at least in America, because they got to install Fortnite and be able to do this billing elsewhere, but at last the right sort of thing is coming to Google as well. We tend to harp on about Apple getting it wrong. Google has got this wrong as well, and I'm glad that these kinds of cases are actually making it fairer for users.
Agreed.
There's not a lot more to say about that, is there, other than, hopefully these chinks in the armor will become a bit more of a torrent and will no longer be any armor, and we'll have fair, free-to-use, competitive app stores.
We can but hope, eh?
It's not going to happen, is it? But we can try. And one of the reasons we know it's not going to happen is our next story from 9to5Mac. Apparently, Apple has spent $8 million lobbying the EU and had at least 76 meetings with them. So that's really not going well. 8 million euros in meetings.
Dollars. That's a lot of money. Why don't they not bother? Because now they got to make all that money back again by ripping off its users and customers. Why don't they just leave it, stop it, and crack on and spend the money on doing better things and making the platform better?
I mean, we're going to talk about how much money Apple makes because it's their Q4 earnings, but in any company, $8 million is a decent chunk of change, even for one that makes as much as Apple does, where we're in the billions. It's not a rounding error, $8 million.
It's a ridiculous quantity, is it not? Like, that's just an insane amount of money to spend lobbying on something that's just happened and everybody else is on board with, apart from Apple.
You just think they would have saved it if they'd read the law and obeyed the spirit and the letter of it. They would be spending this $8 million. All right. They'd have a little less money possibly on their app store because there'd be some services money had gone somewhere else. But frankly, as we've talked about repeatedly, I think most users would still just choose the app store anyway. They're not going to go off and install marketplaces and yada, yada, yada.
I think you're right. Most people are conditioned to use it and it's least path of resistance. So I think this is a largely non-issue for them right now.
They're not alone. Meta apparently spent $10 million on this. So, this is just what big tech firms do.
It's literally set fire to money.
Get the politicians on your side. I'm sure in some ways it's well spent because they are continuing to do these things, but it's just a bit loathsome.
Agreed.
Speaking of loathsome things, and you were slightly smug last week when we talked about the Amazon Web Services outage. This week, we have an Azure outage. Do you want to tell us about this?
Not overly, because I'm still slightly smugging that this had a zero impact on me. But it looks like Microsoft, Xbox, and Minecraft, because obviously Minecraft is in the Microsoft ecosystem, had an outage last week. And It's interesting, isn't it? We had two major outages within short succession. So I'd like to know the root cause of these issues, because are they linked in any way? It feels a bit too timely that they both happened at a similar time. But Microsoft says that to fix it, they initiated the deployment of our last known good configuration, which is Microsoft tech speak that you get in versions of Windows to basically do a rollback. But it was down. Like, this is not good, is it? Like, how do they get these issues that take them down like this? Because you'd have thought they'd have so much redundancy in place that they wouldn't have this sort of issues. It was down for 6 hours, which is not good.
Yeah, it's not good. Lots of the people depend on these services. Microsoft 365 was obviously affected, which means people's email addresses, presumably Teams, Word, Copilot, who knows, whatever else is glommed onto Azure. You didn't see them, but I think you might have been quite unusual in that, because obviously it affected quite an awful lot of people for this kind of outage. So yeah, this is problematic. It is interesting Microsoft speak about these things. I installed an update to SQL Server Management Studio today, and it promised me I would have an exciting new connection experience, which I took to mean it's going to take longer to connect and everything's going to be slower. And I was absolutely right.
Brilliant. Love it when they do that. Why would they do that?
Well, it's exciting. It's slower.
Oh, it's not what we need, though, is it? Things are meant to get quicker and better and faster. Look, this is odd, isn't it, that we can have these minor little issues, and yet it takes so much of the infrastructure out. And a lot of people won't know what they're running underneath. They won't know what their servers are on or their websites. And so this feels like this problem is getting worse and worse and worse.
Yep, it's not going to get easier. And I think with the rise of LLMs allowing people to write better denial of service attacks, with companies relying on LLMs to do their code for them to push these changes and things, it's all going to be a bit of a grey goo soup of software in a minute.
Yeah, I think I would sadly agree with you. As a programmer, I am going to be frustrated. I think that the way I got into IT is going to fall away for a lot of people, and we're going to end up with worse reliability and worse code potentially.
Yeah, I think so. Also, I think I've just given us an episode title, so I'll let you write that down. Moving on, actually not moving very far on, because this software issue has called for European vendors to maybe think about diversifying their clouds a little more. We've already seen this going on, that most of the cloud-based services, Amazon Web Services, Azure, and others are based from American companies. When all the fallout with the tax rules was going on, we saw a push for European clouds. The Azure outage also added to this.
Yes. Oh, really not good. And I get the diversification piece. So as somebody that runs corporate IT, sometimes it's on your mind to save money and put everything in one bucket and with all one place. And then part of your mind's like, well, maybe we need to not do that because it will cost more. But you need that diversification, as they say here in the title, of actually how do we spread it out so if one goes down, the company can still carry on to exist. And a lot of these outages are probably not helping companies like Microsoft, where they're trying to tell their customers, you can bring everything to us, or Amazon. This is probably actually causing them more concern, and for more people to actually separate out or even go back to on-premise potentially.
Yeah, it is a thought. Yeah, and sticking with Microsoft, and they've actually been quite helpful to us. They've given us a little inkling as to how much they're paying for OpenAI. So this story, Microsoft obviously had their earnings as well. All the big tech companies are doing it. OpenAI lost more than $11.5 billion in the last quarter.
I don't understand. How can you lose that much money and carry on trading? I just don't understand. I'm confused. Like, how would you keep afloat? How would you keep paying your staff and your hosting bills and everything? I just don't understand it. It just blows my mind that this happens quarter upon quarter, and yet we just keep pouring more and more money in, hoping it's going to come good.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting observation in the Register article here that if Microsoft owns 27% of OpenAI, it stands to reason under equity accounting that it bears 27% of OpenAI's losses. This makes Microsoft hemorrhage money as well.
Yeah, which is impressive because Microsoft, a bit like Apple, are pretty good at printing their own money.
Yeah, there's sort of thoughts that it may actually be even bigger. Microsoft's net loss after tax was $3.1 billion, with its net loss not including tax actually $4.1 billion. So that's actually 32% of Microsoft's earnings, or losses, rather than 27% of it. So that's a huge amount of money.
It's a lot of money, isn't it? Like, you can't keep sustaining that for a long period of time unless they think there's going to be something golden just over the hill. It is a concern, isn't it? And we've been talking for a long time about the AI bubble bursting. Is this it?
Well, this is why Copilot is being shoved in your face and everything. If they want to make people dependent on it in a couple of aspects of the Microsoft suite, then and then they start to bill for it. That's how you turn this loss into a profit. But my feeling, in my organization at least, is this isn't very sticky.
It's not very sticky. It costs a lot per user to do it. And I don't think it's bringing the returns that people expect because it's not sticky enough. People are just they're playing with it and then they're going back to doing their day job how they've always done their day job. And it's hard to drive this kind of change. Look how much Word, I think we talked about this the other week, how much like Microsoft Word hasn't really changed in 20 years. They move the icons around, give it a lick of paint, but it's largely the same. Whereas what you're trying to do here with Copilot is really change fundamentally how people have worked for the last 20 odd years. Email and IMing haven't really changed that much, whereas now you're trying to get this AI bot to do it. But is anybody actually using any of this stuff, or are we just recording all our meetings, have it analyse our email, but are we actually using it?
I mean, my feeling about this is you ask it a question. If you get the right question the first time, it's good enough. The right answer the first time. However, if you need to alter your prompt in any way to try and get it to do what you want it to do, it's pointless. It becomes a waste of time. You're trying to prompt engineer it. So get it right first time or stop it. But the time you're wasting in the organization messing about with that, A, contributes to people thinking this isn't worth my time. B, costs you money because they're doing it. And C, costs you time because they're messing about trying to get the blooming thing to work.
Yep, completely agree with you. This is absolutely insane.
It is. Something else that's actually absolutely insane is X.com have decided that Twitter.com is being retired. So if you had links still pointing at Twitter.com, this is a problem, for one thing. B, I'm using A's and B's a lot today. Twitter.com is quite a valuable URL. What if this goes up to sale, if they stop paying attention to it at some point, and then you've got dead links pointing to this? It's a spammer's dream, this. But the best thing is that they're automated redirects in their own tweets. X is switching domains to X.com, from X.com to X.com. If you're using a YubiKey, then change it. Wow.
I did see this. So we're moving from X.com to X.com. I'm sure they're meant to say Twitter.com to X.com, surely.
That's what they meant to say.
This is awful, isn't it? And that was from Grok. This whole thing is idiotic.
Grok is their AI tool. Their AI tool can't explain what's going on. It's like so many fails. It's fails all the way down. It's fails in them retiring this domain. It's fails in Grok not understanding what's going on. And the whole thing makes me sick, basically.
Yep, no, I concur with you here. I kind of forget that X is a thing, if I'm honest. You don't see the Twitter budgie on vans anymore. You don't really see X here in the UK anyway. It feels like that network for us has largely departed, and it really is all about Instagram predominantly. I think that's where the world of business seems to be going. Like I said, when you see a van, like a plumber's van or what have you, or a restaurant, you're just not seeing X Twitter. And you barely hear people say anything about, Twitter now known as X or anything like that, even on podcasts.
Yeah, I agree that in most cases these things have gone away. In fact, a gentleman I work with had been told to archive all of their tweets just to have them in a database somewhere for searchable just when they deleted their accounts. So that's of a major firm here in Swansea. So you think if it's hitting your smaller businesses like that you're saying, it's not a surprise. I mean, it's just going to be bots talking to bots any minute.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think if we were to go back to our podcast when Elon was going to take over Twitter, we kind of forecasted this wasn't going to be great.
Yeah, I wonder where its valuation would be today after we bought it for, 56 billion or something stupid.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, should we do some news?
Let's do the news.
The news. First up, Affinity was bought by Canva not that long ago. We were talking about how we liked the apps not that long ago. This week, they've made them free. They've put all their Affinity, Designer, Illustrator, etc., into one app and made it free. I think there's some fairly big scare quotes around free.
Yeah, free. I find this a bit weird that they're now, like, you're going to end up with the everything app. You're taking a photo editing app, a pixel app, and a designer app and putting it all into one app. Is it going to do any of this very well? That's my biggest concern. And how am I going to pay for it?
I think it's the licensing. What's going to happen down the line? Presumably, they're going to start pushing towards the Canva.com website or whatever that equivalent is. My brief experience of Canva is it's a bit of a blancmange. You get everything looks very, very similar. There's no sort of distinct feel to everything. Tack on an LLM at the back end and a subscription to Canva, and you're going to end up in the same place as Adobe, where you're spending £200 a month in order to have your software or your imagery or your designs in the place where you expect it to be. And it's all a bit gross, because once upon a time, Affinity, you paid once, you got that version, you got updates, and you had software that was yours that you could do things with. And this doesn't feel like that.
No, in short, it does not, does it? No, this is a little frustrating, I think, because I quite like the Affinity apps. I bought them. I was happy to use them. And now I'm probably not going to go that way because this doesn't feel good all the way forwards.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm the same. I bought the Affinity apps, not just for me, but for my team at work as well. So we'd all have consistent tools to use things. When we're designing academic posters, PowerPoint doesn't always cut it. You want layers. You want ability to move things around. You want it to be a precise size so it appears on the screen or the page. So you almost need those easy-to-use publishing tools or drawing tools. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I think I'll have to think something else. It's free in one sense, but at the same time, the day that they pull those licenses and make me charge for it, I'm not paying a monthly ongoing cost for something like this. It's not worth it to me.
No, and that's where I'm at. I'm happy to pay one-off. I'm happy to pay yearly, but I don't want to be nickel and dimed every month because I don't get enough use out of it. But I like something where I pay for it, and I can use. It's not my day job. If I was using it all day every day, I'd be in a different place. So yeah.
If you were using it all day every day, you'd be paying for Photoshop, or you'd learn something free like GIMP, and you'd go from there. Frankly, so I wonder what the implications are for Pixelmator and Apple, though.
Yeah, and we haven't seen much out of that. I really think something's coming with the 26.1 update, in that I reckon Apple will update all their apps, because I reckon they're going to fix all their bugs. And so I wonder if we will see something very soon. Yeah,
and Safari will be faster too. Moving on, sticking with Apple.
I miss those days.
Apparently, and this is Mark Gurman dropped this in his weekly thing, that the new Siri will secretly use Google's Gemini models behind the scenes. So this is Apple's private cloud compute stuff. What they were going to say was going to be run on board of their servers isn't going to leak out. Apparently, Gemini will be licensed to Apple to run on those servers, to run at the back end. So you'll be able to do some daily stuff. What's the weather like? Who won the sports event? Whatever it is. On-prem for Apple, making use of a Gemini license rather than going to Gemini itself. And this is very similar to a deal that Samsung has with Google, where its on-device models are all run on-prem for Samsung as well. So it stays within their servers and doesn't go directly to Gemini. Seems like a decent compromise and might actually make Siri okay.
I agreed. It feels like Apple have had to eat their humble pie and go cap in hand to Google. I would have loved to have seen Google's face in that meeting of going, you can't do it, it's really hard, and we've done it, and you're going to hand us over another big check. So I think this is good. Look, Siri is a joke, is it not? So they've got to do something. It's amazing that we're 14 years into Siri, and we don't really use it for any more than we originally used it for. So and it's frustrating when you do that.
I use Siri for setting timers and nothing else.
Timers, and on the HomePod, play something I like is my favourite phrase, because it would just put on my playlist, basically.
I was using it in the car, or trying to use it in the car on my drive, and it was just shambolic. I
won't use it in the car.
I try. It's interesting in the car, because I've got both. I can say, OK, Google, or I can say, hey, dingus. And OK Google almost always works. Almost always works. It can even give me variations. So, for example, show me Ionity chargers within 20 miles, and it will.
Wow, okay, that's quite... I wouldn't even think to do it, because I end up just getting... It just makes my blood temperature, my blood boil, because it gets it wrong. It makes me angry, so I just don't use it, because I know I'll end up getting stressed out and grumpy because I'm trying to get it to do something.
Yeah. So Gemini is a win, but moving on to the next story, not everything for Google has been. There's been a bit of a scandal in the last week about YouTube removing tech tutorials. So that is how you do something in Windows. And a lot of them that have been removed are about the Windows bypasses. So we spoke a couple of weeks back about how the onboarding for Windows 11 was, let's not beat around the bush, a chuffing nightmare. Whereas other software systems, Apple's isn't perfect these days, but it's not continually trying to upsell you on Office 365, Google, Microsoft Azure, Xbox Live, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, there were a number of YouTube tutorials that showed you how to get around these things, and they just started disappearing. They weren't getting copyright strikes against them or warnings to channels. Just videos are being removed with no warning whatsoever, including some quite large channels from people who make quite a lot of money from them. If your video goes away, it's not getting clicks, and therefore you're not getting your earnings from it, particularly if you're a big channel. So this is really a bit weird. Google are saying that AI wasn't involved in automated takedowns, but they haven't really given particularly good explanations as to what's happened.
Yeah, it's a bit odd, this, isn't it? Feels a bit odd.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to take something down, Google and Apple, be open and honest about why you're doing it. There's nothing more frustrating, is there?
Yeah, and there's sort of a bit of behind-the-scenes stuff here as well, where obviously it's just Microsoft content that's going missing, how to do it. Microsoft refused to comment to ours as to what was going on here, so it's all a bit shady.
Come on, somebody's asked somebody to do something. Just say what you've done. Like, stuff's disappearing out of the public domain. What is that about?
Wouldn't you just say, Microsoft believes that in order to have the best possible experience as part of our setup, as they did before when we talked about this, we don't want any... But it is very shady when one company's just saying to the other, go on, mates, just take this down for us, would you please?
Yep, completely agree. Just say what you've asked them to do. Like, so infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, Windows 11 is very infuriating, and it's not just us that think so, it's also the NHS. And I think I've talked about this previously, where when you do get these big monolithic updates that come back, so Windows 10 is out of life or whatever it is that takes 8 years, if you're the vendor of a medical supplier that you make, say, a blood gas analyzer or something like that, it's not that simple for you to provide the updates, even with a big run-up to it, because your device is medically certified for a particular software version, for a particular update in a particular environment. Admittedly, those machines run in a more homogeneous network that have other devices on them, but that is the way that medical device suppliers have chosen to go with this. So the NHS is complaining that quite a lot of its medical suppliers haven't actually updated, despite Windows 10 having ended support for them. So it's a real problem that they need to quarantine these devices on networks.
Yeah, that puts them in a really tricky spot if the vendor's not doing the updates. Like, what do you do? You know, it's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard, and it leaves you in with a serious problem if these devices are vulnerable to attack. And let's face it, we talk about cybersecurity in the NHS being problematic. Do you think the vendor of, I don't know, an eye scanning piece of software to look at your retina that runs Windows 11 as its storage engine has really tested its cybersecurity? Because it's assuming you're going to be inside of a relatively secure network. This is a problem.
Yeah, this is a problem. And like you say, it's hard for these embedded systems to get updated and to roll out. This is not easy. How many devices on Windows 10? And you've also got to remember, we were told Windows 10 was going to be the last version of Windows. This is it. We're not going to keep doing versions. And then Microsoft walked that back and got everybody to upgrade to 11.
Yeah. So depressing times if you're in the NHS, run Windows 10 or want to upgrade to Windows 11. It's all a bit of we're back to grey goo, I think. It feels like it's nasty all the way down.
There's a lot of grey goo today.
A lot of grey goo. Something I quite like the look of. We don't talk a lot about Matter devices, other than my pleasant experience of adding some light switches a couple of weeks back. I had good experience with my Meross garage door opener embedded with HomeKit. I thought it was quite a nice device. This just caught my eye, actually. A new Matter device from Meross that brings presence and light sensors to HomeKit that's a Matter device. So if you want to pop one of these relatively inexperienced devices in your hallway, for example, you could set your lights to come on, bulbs to go up, and all the rest of it within your Apple Home environment and set up automations for not a huge amount of money with a smart presence sensor in a couple of rooms. I think this is quite cool.
Yeah, it is quite cool. And I was just thinking, as you said it, like, that does sound quite good. You know, like, I've walked in the front door, pop the lights on, please. I quite like the sound of this. And I must confess, I've not really bought any HomeKit stuff in years. Like, I've got some plug sockets, as do you, and there's some cameras. But I've done nothing for a long time. That sort of ecosystem feels like it's very much matured, hasn't it, of what you can and can't do for the smart home. And we're not really seeing anything that's, oh, wow, I must go and get this, in whatever that may be. For a long time, it was the Hue lights, then it was these plugs, then we've had light switches and doorbells. That's probably about it.
But this is pretty cool. It's $40 on Amazon.com. It's not so expensive you could mess about with it, really, if you wanted to try something like this. Imagine putting this near your Christmas tree. So when your kids come down in the morning, blink, on it comes, and your Christmas tree lights start going.
Magic.
To the kids, it would be.
Yeah, no, it's good. And it's a good, like you say, it's a really good price.
Yep, I agree. Something that's not quite such a good price, we should probably have categorized this with the Windows things, is that if you are running Windows 11, there's a current bug known as KB5067036 that if you try and kill a task in Task Manager spawns another instance of Task Manager. That's not a great bug.
Especially as something that's quite an old bit of Windows. Like, I'm amazed that it's got a new bug like this.
Yeah, so look out for that, folks. You probably want to get into software update and update yourself, but it's just comical that Task Manager spawns another Task Manager.
Yeah, that is quite amusing, to be fair.
We've probably got too many news stories today, Chris, but let's try and rattle through these next two in relatively short order. I know you've dabbled a little bit in digital currencies. I don't know how that's going. Don't never believe our investment advice on this podcast. But apparently the EU is also going to dabble a little bit with digital currencies, where it's planning for a digital euro to enter circulation in 2029.
Ooh, interesting. I have dabbled. Don't take any advice from me. I've made a small amount of money, but not a lot of money. I don't really know what I'm doing. This is interesting. I wonder why they're feeling the need to do this. So I was going to be curious to see how this is going to work. Are people going to latch onto it? Because I think there's a lot of people are just using digital currencies, not for trading, but just to own it, invest, sell it after they've made some money. It's going to be interesting. Like, what is the future of digital currency? Like, are we actually going to be paying for goods like this and services? I'm curious.
I mean, it comes back to me thinking most of these things are actually a pyramid scheme, but that's maybe just my horrible cynicism, and somebody could convince me who sees the light could see more. I do see the benefit in a central bank having some sort of verified currency transfer system, because let's face it, a lot of the benefits of digital currencies are the ability for anybody to be able to have them, including shady organizations, and there not being any sort of transaction monitoring within that about how these things come about. So I'd be interested to see how this shakes out. It certainly adds a bit of veracity to the payments as opposed to some of the shadier things.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the central bank should be getting involved with this.
Yep, fair. Another thing that you may want to get involved in or may not is, and I know you like a bit of healthcare stuff here, Chris, Withings, those of digital scales and blood pressure monitors that you can add into your Apple Health app, have released a $380 toilet-mounted urine analyzer. So if you really, really want to know what's in your pee on an ongoing basis, then you too can invest in this and have to change the cartridge every 2 months, and it will check pH, colour, how dehydrated you are, stuff like that of your urine. Is this for you?
This is a niche market, isn't it? It's probably why it's so expensive like that.
Well, it sits in a little niche in your toilet, yeah.
Wow, okay. This, as I said to you before, I think why I stopped wearing my Apple Watches, I just wasn't looking at the data. I guess this is good if you're going to work on the data and make sure you're fully hydrated all the time. But not something I'll be acquiring.
I mean, there's two reasons for something like this. I guess if you're diabetic and you're worried about ketones or something like that. But although if you're that diabetic, the chances are you should have a better way of monitoring it than when you pee every so often. And apparently, if you take an Ozempic or a Mounjaro or something like that in this country, you might also want to keep an eye on what's going on with your urine. So rather than dipping a dipsticks in your pee every so often, I guess you could spend $400 plus another couple of hundred every year on replacement cartridges for it. You can see the way the things are going, but I just thought this was an interesting instance of a smart thing that I'm not in any rush to put in my smart home.
No, me neither. I think it goes back to my point. It feels like we've got a mature smart market. I'm curious to know, is this still going to be for sale in 2 years' time?
Well, we've already talked about these things going away, even from large medical devices suppliers who just the software stops working and you end up with useless or pointless or completely inactive gadgets inside of your body in some cases that actually have no software support. So this is less damaging than that, but Withings have been around for a while, but it's an interesting one, definitely.
Yeah, I agreed with you. And look, I do like some of the stuff they do, and fair play, they're doing the niche corners of the market, aren't they? So it'll be interesting to see if this, like I say, stays around.
Yeah, hopefully they're not taking the piss. Moving on. Sorry, it had to be done. Moving on, and we like to keep an eye on the smartphone market, and I just thought this was an interesting one, really. So OnePlus 15 has been announced. Not just announced, it's arriving in China. The rest of the world will get it soon. I think we'll revisit that then. What I find really interesting about this device is it's got 165 hertz screen, so Apple devices have only just got 120 hertz screens in the majority of them, but the battery is vast. It's got a 7,300 milliamp hour battery.
That feels like it's like double what I'm getting. So, and it's a good looking phone, is it not? Like, that's a nice looking piece of kit.
I like that. I like that look. I think the camera plateau is far nicer than Apple's one, I got to say. I quite like the squared off corners, got to say.
Looks cleaner than Apple at the moment.
And $560 on current equivalent transfer from yen.
That feels all right, given that most iPhones are 1,000.
I think this is really good. Triple 50 megapixel real camera, IP69 durability, 120 watt wired charging, so you're going to be able to top it up quite quickly as well. This looks like an interesting device.
Yeah, agreed. It looks really good, doesn't it? Fair play. And like I say, I like the clean design. Looks really smart.
And OnePlus, to be fair to them, their software, they don't tend to meddle with the Google default software very much either. They've got a good history of giving software updates. Devices have been in the market for a long time. I think this is a good device.
Agreed.
Let's revisit it when it comes to Europe. Anything else in the news, Chris?
No, I don't think so.
Good stuff. We actually haven't missed a story for once. Should we do some media?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, I don't know about you, but I'm up to date with my Slow Horses season finale's been. You seen it?
No, I'm so far behind. I have read the book, so I do know the story, but I've not caught up with the TV show.
So this is season 5 that's just finished here around the world. I was going to say in the UK, but everywhere in the world gets it at the same time. 97% from critics, 87% from audience. The Guardian gave this season a bad review. I think it only gave it 3 stars. I disagree. I think it's one of the best seasons we've had.
Oh, well, that's good. I am curious to watch it. I kind of want to go back and watch them all again, if I'm being honest, but I do want to watch this one. I think it's going to be good, and it's good. The book was good.
I quite like lots of things about it. I quite like the fact that for a change, it wasn't all about River. They've all had a sort of very River tendency up to now. This, I felt, made more use of the rest of the team. Shame Louisa wasn't in it as much, but I thought it was really solid.
Yeah, that is good, and they've got a great ensemble cast, haven't they? I know some of them are lesser well-known actors, but I think the whole cast is really well done. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I like the way they build in the strands of next seasons. In this season, you can see a character is introduced or a plot point arises or something happens that you can see isn't going to pay off yet and may not for a couple of seasons. I like that about it. I did also observe, though, A, it's been renewed for 2 more seasons, but B, the showrunner, Will Smith, has left. So I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened there. Because I did go to a book event where Mick Herron, the author, was, and they had one of the members of the screenplay writing team there, and they made reference that he was leaving. So it'd be interesting to see. But they've had such a good, 5 seasons. Hopefully it will carry on.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that is carrying on is Apple's commitment with Mick Herron. So they now have a second Mick Herron TV show in live. So Down Cemetery Road released last week. It stars Emma Thompson and Ruth Wilson. They dropped 2 seasons of it, and I'm guessing as you haven't seen the end of Slow Horses that you haven't started watching this yet.
No, but I'm reading the 3rd book of this series, and looking at the reviews though, not great on the reviews, and I'm a little not surprised because the book's a bit tough going, to be fair. It's some of Mick's earlier work, but what did you think of it?
Yeah, I'm kind of in line with these reviews, really. I think there's some good performances here. Emma Thompson is always great value. Ruth Wilson's okay. I mean, I understand why she's as well regarded as she is. I think it's quite tricky material to do something with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, reasonable. It's enough that I've watched both episodes. I think it's improving. I think the first episode isn't great. It doesn't have the immediate sort of hook that Slow Horses had. This might be the way to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were losing viewers who just watched the first one and went, eh. But we'll see. I guess, like I say, the second one was improving. Yeah,
I will give this a go. Like I say, I've read the books. Curious to see how they've done it, but it's a very different premise to Slow Horses, and I don't think it's going to transfer as well, would be my gut. So I'll see how we go on with it.
Yep, fair. You have been watching film from the looks of things.
I have. I've watched a couple of things, actually, which was interesting. So first thing I watched was The Roses. Have you seen this film?
No, I think this is a remake of War of the Roses with Michael Douglas and oh gosh, I've forgotten the actress, Kathleen Turner.
Yeah, it is a remake of that. I've not seen that, and it's just something I put on, and I thought I'd give it a go. What completely blew my mind, though, is where they filmed a lot of this. I was there in the summer, had lunch in the cafe that's one of the main scenes, Didn't realise why they'd renamed the cafe, but now I know because it's in this film. But they're also pretending that this little corner of Devon is in America, which I found really odd because Devon doesn't look like America, and they put a bunch of American cars in this very small cul-de-sac by the sea. So it was I found all that a bit odd. Why didn't they just take these couple of actors out to America and do it? Performances were great. Benedict Cumberbatch's always great. Olivia Colman, great. But I think by trying to pretend it was in America and it not being America was a bit odd. Some of the special effects weren't fantastic. But interesting story about a couple who fall madly in love, have children, and then end up not liking each other terribly much and really arguing with each other. And then obviously it ends at some point, and I don't want to give away the ending, but I thought it was okay. But the whole America being in the UK thing was just really bizarre in my head.
And completely unnecessary, because they're both English actors. They've both done lots of things in America. You know, both of them, I think, might have won Oscars. Certainly Olivia Colman's won Oscars.
But why not either set it in England or Britain or move them over to America for a month? I just found it really bizarre.
Maybe that was their conditions for filming it. They wanted a bit of time at home. The War of the Roses film, I would rate more with the critics than I would with the audience. The critics' rating on this is 65 and the audience is 79. I think it's a far more average movie, or certainly The War of the Roses was, and this looks like it's trending in that direction to me too. It was, yeah, I think it was fair to say.
Yeah, I think it is. So I'm glad I've seen it, and like I say, seeing what they did with the beach I was on with my family in the summer was just strange to see it pop up in a film.
Sneakers.
So last week I said I was listening to a podcast called Rewatchables. One of the films they rewatched in that podcast was Sneakers, so I went and rewatched Sneakers. What a great movie. I quite like this film. I watched it a lot as a child, and it's got 80% by the reviewers and the world alike, and I think that's probably fair, especially when you're watching it more recently. It's obviously aged a little bit, hasn't got the tech there, but I think it's a great film. Again, another amazing ensemble cast. And yeah, just generally really enjoyed watching it again. Hadn't seen it in a few years.
Never seen it.
You've never seen Sneakers?
No.
I know you have a go at me, but come on.
Never seen Sneakers, never seen Hackers.
This is a techie film. Like, it is quite cool, the premise of it. I would recommend watching it. It's a good hour and a half of your life.
They do say that Hackers is, of these films, the most realistic of all of them.
Yeah, this one is less IT orientated because it was 92, so it was before the internet, before that kind of hacking became a thing. I think it's quite cool. I would recommend you watch it. I don't want to spoil the story, but like I say, amazing cast, interesting story, and I just generally quite enjoyed it.
I'm going to throw out the third film in this trilogy. Not quite a trilogy.
Is it The Net?
No, it's Swordfish.
Oh my lord, I've forgotten about Swordfish.
Yeah, have you seen Swordfish?
Yeah, I think they came out when we were at university. Did it?
Yeah, it did come out when we were at university. I think I went to see it while we were at university. I only watched it once. It was in the cinema. Great cast. One of Hugh Jackman's very first films, I think.
Yeah, he looks very young there, doesn't he?
Very, very young. Yeah, Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, and
John Travolta.
John Travolta. Has a very memorable hack into this computer scene set in a nightclub, which stayed with me. Of only all hacking was like that. But I think the audience's 27% score, the critics' score of 27% is extremely generous to this film.
Yeah, this was not a great film.
Not a great film. Should we do some games?
Let's do it.
Not a huge amount to say in games. I don't think either of us have really had the time to spend a lot of time playing games.
No, I've been away on holiday with the family and away with work, so gaming just hasn't been a thing.
Yeah, so first up, Xbox console revenue fell 30% year over year this summer. This is coming out from Microsoft's earnings that we talked about earlier in the podcast. Probably not helped by the Azure thing either. And this is before the almost 50% price increase that Xbox are rolling out. I think this is hard times for Xbox.
So yeah, their Xbox hardware revenue fell by 30%. No big surprise, surely. Like at this point in its life cycle, who's buying Xbox right now? Surely the people that won an Xbox bought an Xbox years ago. Like, you're at the tail now, aren't you? I'm not surprised by this.
No, neither am I. I think they're going to struggle, though. The PlayStation is compelling. The Switch 2 is fairly recently out. Xbox Live, which these consoles, as we said when we recommended the Xbox S way back when, are only as good as the service that's on them, because the games aren't necessarily better than what you get on a PlayStation or even a Switch 2 these days. So it's a hard thing, particularly the more expensive one. Enthusiasts will buy Xbox Series X. The people who just want a cheap console buy the S. And then it's gone up in price anyway. So this is problematic for Microsoft, I think.
Yeah, but the Xbox Xbox will be coming out soon. I don't know what they're going to call it, but yeah, it's going to be some horrible name, isn't it? But I'm not surprised. Are you? I just think nobody's buying like this sort of hardware. Like I said, everybody's got a PlayStation or an Xbox now. Those decisions have been made.
Yeah, you're probably right. Decisions that people roll back, however, keep coming to Civilization 7. I think we talked 2 weeks ago about Auto Explorer coming back. Well, now they're going to roll back on one of their major things, and that is the ability to change civilization at one of the era changes. This is just turning it back into Civilization 6.
It does feel like they've made some missteps with this game, but I'm glad they are correcting them and patching them, because if you've made a mistake, at least admit it and deal with it. I haven't played Civ enough, I must confess.
I think this is a problem for developers, though. If the fans only ever want the same game, why would you ever write a new one?
True. Yeah, it's a fair point, because, yeah, we need to try new things, don't we, and take it in a different direction. Otherwise, we'll be playing Command & Conquer forever.
Well, you will be. I mean, the rest of us will occasionally try a new thing, at least. I will give this another go when this patch is out. To be honest, I have very rarely got to the change in ages because I've had so many problems with the game leading up to that. And it feels like a grind, which is not a great... Civilization should feel like a grind, but in a good way. And this doesn't feel like a grind in a good way. There's also changes to the naval system. They're going to have better naval combat, which is a good thing. I quite like playing with a navy in the game anyway, so maybe this will bring me back for a look. But I just feel like they're just going back to a default position. And if you look at what cinema is like, if you make a film based entirely on what the fans want, see all of Zack Snyder's films, you end up with films that nobody goes to watch.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the big problem I have with Civ is, I think in my head I need to give it way more time. What I need to do is just go and play it and save it, and if I walk away from it and come back 2 days later, that's fine. Whereas I often just play for half an hour on a game, and this just doesn't come up because I think, no, I need to set aside 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it is a bit of a time commitment. And, you're not a 20-year-old anymore who's got the time at university to settle to one side.
Sadly not.
If only it were the case. If you have only got 5 minutes to have a quick game of something, let me recommend Death by Scrolling. Now out for real. This is by the same developer that did Monkey Island, Ron Gilbert, and lots of other games in that way. It's only £6, I think, when I bought it. It's a bit of a twitchy, arcade shootery thing, roguelike, where the environments change around you. The idea is you've continually got to move up the screen. You can, in the video here, you can see the fire burning at the bottom. You've got to move up all the time. It's literally Death by Scrolling. It's an interesting mechanic. You can pick up different weapons. The idea is to get gems. It's funny, because Ron Gilbert is funny. He knows how to write a humorous game. And it's not a lot of money. So if you just want something you can play for 5 or 10 minutes, for £6 and 2 pence, Death by Scrolling can be yours. It runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Yeah, that's cool. It does look quite cool.
It's fun. Play it with the keyboard, play it with the controller. It's great. If you've got a Steam Deck, it's the perfect kind of game for that.
Yeah, sadly I sold mine.
I don't know what to say, Chris. You still got your play date though, have you?
No, I sold that too.
Oh my god.
I sold lots of stuff I wasn't playing with when I was unemployed. So I did buy a Switch 2 instead though, and sold my original Switch. So there you go.
I'm aghast. Should we talk about money instead then?
Oh, if we must. Everybody's favourite topic.
Let's do a main show. It's Apple's Q4 quarterly report. I don't think we need to dwell on this too much, really, just because, we know Apple makes lots of money. But let's go through the charts and see if there's anything that sort of really jumps out as we go. So Apple's Q4 2025 earnings, the bottom line is $102.47 billion in revenue, up 8%. So total revenue $142.47 billion, iPhone revenue $49.02, Mac revenue $8.73, iPad $6.95. Always amuses me how little iPad is. Wearables $9.01 billion, services revenue $28.75 billion, and net income $27 billion. And let's be clear about this, for the quarter.
Yeah, for the quarter. I think if anybody had a £7 billion iPad business, they'd be pretty happy with themselves. For Apple, though, it does look small. It is interesting how the iPad and the Mac sometimes flip between each other, of which one takes that that spot. I think what's interesting here, though, is this is their best Q4 they've ever had. Well, certainly in the charts we're looking at, which go back all the way to 21, Q4 in 2020, which is quite interesting. I think that it's their best quarter they've had for Q4. 102 billion. That's a lot of revenue, isn't that?
I mean, you forget sometimes just how big a company they are and how much money they make. I mean, that overall income of 27 billion, I mean, that is a very healthy... let's face it, we just said OpenAI lost 15 billion in a quarter. Apple made almost twice that.
Yeah, Apple could shore up OpenAI and still show good profit.
Yeah, that's just staggering. The amount, and plus the cash reserves they have on hand. That's a healthy company.
Is it not crazy, though, that 75% of their business is iPhone at circa 50 billion and then services at circa 28? So that gets you about 75 billion just on two areas of their business alone. And really the Mac and wearables and the iPad are drops in the ocean in comparison.
Yeah, they are. Well, as you said, in and of themselves would be healthy businesses on their own for most companies.
Yeah, but you can see why they spend so much effort on the iPhone, because it's still half their business.
And why they defend their revenue so viciously, because that's the easiest thing to go up. They don't need to do much in services, do they? As long as they're selling devices, then the services revenue just follows. Yeah,
because most people like me on Apple Music are locked in and don't want to deal with the change.
Yeah, I think it's time that we should do an episode on escaping the cloud at some point, really, or what you need to do yourself to get out of some of these things.
Yeah, I do wonder that, like, would I be better to buy my albums rather than lease them every year? Would it be better for me actually just to buy 500 worth albums slowly over time and slowly reverse out of the cloud? Would that be better long term if we're going to live for another 30 years and listen to the same music and slowly add a couple of albums a month? That might actually be a cheaper way of doing it.
It's a thought. I mean, for most people, and we should maybe save it for that thing, but for most people, I think that it's the photos backup and the storage that would be the biggest problem for most families, at least.
Yeah, especially non-techie people.
If you could set up something on people's phones where it just worked and it backed up their photos and they never whinged they were running out of space, I think Apple would lose a lot of revenue right there.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So what I find interesting, though, is so we've said like iPhone's 48% of the business, services is 28%, and then the other three, iPhone, Mac and iPad, they're roughly between 7 and 9% each. Like, it's crazy that you've got two big clumps and then the rest are just split equally between themselves, like the leftovers.
Yeah, it is. I mean, iPhone revenue up 6%, and where were we the quarter before? It was down. No, it was 5% in Q4 the year before. So it's fairly stable based on what they did last year, just looking at iPhone revenue. So that says to me the people that upgrade iPhones have upgraded their iPhones, plus the sort of natural turnover of people. The Q1 is always the big quarter for a lot of Apple stuff, because that's when people is pent up demand, Christmas devices, all that kind of stuff is what you see it, and you see it typically year on year. The original quarter after Christmas is where they sell the bulk of the devices. So I guess that's quite interesting. We'll see if there has been a true difference in this year's iPhone compared to last year's. But that looks like, well, I mean, you get the odd down year, but that's where the big bump in all their devices comes.
Sure, there's going to be a lot of Apple products underneath Christmas trees this year. There are every year. You'd expect it, wouldn't you?
You would expect it, and they have got the mind share, particularly in the United States. That's what you get. New pair of AirPods, new phone for your partner, new phone for your kids, whatever it is going to be. That's typically where you're going to see it. So that's not going away. They've released good phones this year, with the exception of the iPhone Air, which is the phone that got replaced with the iPhone Air. I think Apple will be fine next quarter as well, and they'll have another very good 2026.
Yeah, and they're probably going to have more products coming out over the next 6 months. All the Macs are going to get updated, so I think they'll be all right.
Looking at Macs, I think this is fairly healthy, actually. They've turned a corner going back from Q4 23, where they've seen steady sort of quarter-on-quarter, if not growth, stable. Initially quite low, but now they seem to have got the pipeline sorted out, M1, M2, M3, M4. This is going along quite nicely now, 15%, 9%, 16%, 13%. I think this is all fairly healthy profit on the Mac.
Yeah, and the Macs have got to a really good place. There's no bad Mac to buy. You recommend nearly any of them to anybody, so they've got to a good position with it, haven't they?
And I think if they do produce the fabled, entirely redesigned MacBook Pros next year, that will be quite interesting as well. So we get OLED screens, we get different ports, we get allegedly slimmer again. As long as they don't take away the HDMI and they don't take away too many other bits and pieces, I think that'll be, again, a solid up. And they don't bring back the butterfly keyboard, of course.
That was me doing the touchscreen. We might get a touchscreen on a Mac, which would be interesting.
Might get a touchscreen on a Mac. I don't see any reason not to. Most Windows users use to poke in the screen. I have very occasionally reached up to poke a dialogue myself without thinking about it too hard.
It's worse now that the icons are the same and a lot of apps are the same, especially if you use an iPad all day and then you look at your Mac and you go, oh, I've just used News or Safari. Oh, I can't do that thing.
Yeah, speaking of iPads, it's not doing quite as well as other devices as we've talked about here. It is down. It has been down the last 2 quarters, iPad. I got to say, I think that's a reflection on A, how expensive they are, and B, it's struggling a little bit. I believe next quarter, given that it's been down, people will get them under the Christmas tree. I think the updates to iPad OS are compelling enough that people could actually consider an iPad as a primary device as opposed to a backup device. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not surprised iPads are down. People are just doing more and more on their phones. Phones get bigger, phones get more capable. There are still a lot of iPads out there, but people know if they want an iPad, they know, and I think the higher end iPads are so niche now. I'm amazed they make so many iPads for a relatively small market.
Yeah, it's an interesting device that I still struggle to fit into my lifestyle. I know how much you love it, but I think you've been using your Mac more, right? I
have. I've been using my Mac in the corporate world, and maybe we'll do a bit of a show on that of what's an iPad user using a Mac in the corporate world look like. I still love my iPad, but I have been using my Mac a little bit more.
Let's definitely do that. Wearables and home accessories, a very interesting market. In my head, most of wearables are AirPods. I don't really think about home as being part of this because HomePods are useless, pointless, annoying, and don't sound well enough to me to replace a Sonos or something. The ones I bought, in fact, are in a box behind me over there. I don't even leave them plugged in. They just take up power for no point.
Wow, okay. Surely, though, the majority of this bar graph is made up of AirPods. Like, that's got to be the lion's share. You've got Vision in there, you've got Apple TVs, and you've got HomePods, as you said. They are going to be...
watches.
Actually, you're right. Watches and AirPods, they're going to make the lion's share of this, surely.
Yeah, and even then, we've talked. The last 2 watch updates have been very minor, frankly. The last 2 watch updates in all of the categories haven't really been worth rushing out to buy. So if the watch is back on a 3-year cycle, and overall we haven't said, wearables, home accessories, etc., are actually all down. It's 0% loss this quarter, but you're following since quarter 3. What is this? 2023. Down, 3%, 5%, 9% in Q3 this year, as opposed to not being down now. So that is got to be watches and AirPods Pro 3 that are driving the difference here, because it certainly ain't the HomePods. But that's actually quite a tough sector when you look at it, isn't it? They haven't done historically very well in here.
No, they haven't. And who wants to go buy one of their watches, really? Like, if you already got one of the watches, there's been very few reasons to upgrade, I think. It's just something nobody's talking about.
Yeah, to go from minus 9% to 0% is actually a bit of a win. So I think that is something to celebrate for them in Q4.
Yeah, agreed.
So always the most interesting graph. The graph that the number only ever goes up, which is what every business person ever wants to see. I have got an MBA. This is the graph you want. You want a nice Q4. You want a nice quarter with your cash cows in one corner. But more than anything, you want to see your services, a revenue or a service just going up all the time. In Q4, 28.75 billion in Q4. Not bad.
I think that's pretty amazing, isn't it? That it's just slowly going up and up and up. Maybe all those internal adverts that they run are actually paying off.
It's just amazing. Plus the fact they're not going to have to give back the money that Google's been giving them for the search embedding, and that's 50 billion, isn't it? Just there.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Is it 50 billion or 50 million? These numbers...
I was going to say million. I think million.
Maybe million, but it all adds up, doesn't it? 50 million is a fair chunk of change. The only time they've ever dropped over a quarter was Q4 2022. So what's that? Tail end of the pandemic. People coming back to work and all the rest. But since then, it's just been continual growth.
Yeah, fair play to them. Eddie Q must be loving life. And they've got F1 to add on to that next year.
It's no wonder he gets to go to so many basketball games.
And Formula One, and be a chair at Ferrari.
But it is incredible, and you see those sort of Q4 revenues, they tend to be the growth ones, unlike the rest of the company where it's sort of the Q1. Q4 for services is where you see sort of jumps in revenue, or at least steady 14, 15, 16%. That's quite interesting. I guess that immediately follows the new phones.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So interesting times. Apple revenue per category. iPhone makes up 48% of the company, as you said. Services 28%. The Mac is only 8%. The iPad is 7%. And then wearables, home and accessories 9%. So yeah, interesting.
But like I say, it's crazy, isn't it? How so much of it is services and phone, and then the last little slither is just broken into three between those three little product lines for Apple.
It is. So good times for Apple. It was interesting. Jason Snell reports on the conference call. I think he listens in. He does a lot of the charts for this kind of stuff. For a lot of the companies in there, he does a great job with his thing. But apparently, Tim Cook actively dodged a question this time. He said something along the lines of, "I'm just not going to answer that." So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, he doesn't often do that, does he?
No. He doesn't often do that. We don't like to publicly disclose that for competitive reasons, but frankly, we don't really know what we're doing in the mix yet because we have constraints both sides of the ledger, so we'll see what happens when we get more supply. Stuff like that. He was actually giving blunter answers than he has typically.
Do you reckon he's had enough and he's on his way out?
He's on his way out. Tim doesn't care. He's got all the dollars in the world anyway, doesn't he?
True. I mean, he does not need to work, surely. So it depends if you're enjoying it. Like, there's a balance, isn't there? If you enjoy what you do, you carry on. But maybe you'd want to go and see the world more and not have all the stresses and strains of it. I'd not be funny if I had his money. I wouldn't be working.
Well, you wouldn't have been working for the last 10 years. But, you know,
Fair.
If you're the CEO of a company where all the users are going, Tim Cook needs to go, and then he walks into the boardroom and he shows you a services revenue chart like that, or a quarter four like this one,
Yep.
None of the board are going to say bye, Tim.
No, they're in no rush for him to leave.
Yeah, so there we go. That's Apple's quarter four profits. Anything else to say about that?
It's pretty much as expected, isn't it? There's nothing really to comment on, I think.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I've got an outgoing thought, which I'd love to show you the outgoing thought, but as usual, the bloomin' stupid tabs in Safari are giving me grief. Sorry, everybody, particularly for the watchers of the podcast. My outgoing thought is that Apple's services division is now bigger than Walt Disney or Tesla.
Yeah, that is insane, isn't it? That like Disney that own Lucasfilm, Marvel, and probably many other assets.
Hulu.
How is it bigger than that? So, but as soon as you say Apple Cards in there and Apple Pay, you know, you've got all that reoccurring revenue from all these transactions. It's not a big shock, is it?
No, but it's still quite significant. If you think, all right, Tesla's quite a new company who's not doing very well, but they do okay. They sell a lot of physical products out there in the world that people drive around in, and Apple's services division is bigger than that business. Mental.
Yeah, no, it's crazy when you think bigger than Tesla or Disney that's been going forever. It still churns out good films, got lots of parks and legacy IP that they own. Just, yeah, crazy.
It is crazy. App of the week?
Do it.
So my app of the week this week isn't an app, it's a podcast. You've occasionally resorted to podcasts, so I will too. It's hard to find an app every week, which is why I know you do Thing of the Week. So my app of the week is the Rest is History podcast. Are you familiar with this?
Nope. I have heard of it. I've never listened to it.
It's two British podcasters who are obviously very good historians, who have a huge amount of experience to do an awful lot of research on every topic. When you're going on a long drive for potentially 11 hours in a car, what you want is something you can listen to.
That's a long car drive.
It was a long car drive, and I did it twice in 3 days, so I needed stuff to listen to. So as I scroll through the sort of history here for podcast viewers, they tend to do a topic to death, really. So they will find something, they will go from the beginning of it, and they'll very thoroughly go through it. And they've covered a lot of things in their now 600 plus episodes. I listened to Nelson. This is their second 5-series arc of Nelson, so they've done 10 episodes on Nelson. I listened to the original ones back in the day, which takes him from his birth up to the Battle of the Nile, not knowing how familiar anybody is with Nelson. And then these 5 go from the Battle of the Nile right through to his, and spoilers, history fans, his death at the Battle of Trafalgar, and just what impact he had on the United Kingdom. And I don't want to give too much away because I'll let the boys do it. They do a terrific job. It's a fantastic podcast, very well researched. They're very entertaining as well. They make it relevant to a modern listener. But just what they managed to do with Nelson to take you through, and he was the first commoner to be given a state funeral, which is incredible for a not quite working class. His dad was a vicar, so I would call him middle class these days. But only ever royalty had this before, and his victory at the Trafalgar was such a big deal to the kingdom that his funeral set what would happen with Wellington, who came after him, and with Churchill and others. Very few people are granted that. Nelson was the first. So that just shows the impact he had on the United Kingdom.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realise that. That's quite interesting. Okay, I have heard of this, and I do believe the show's really well rated because, like you say, because of the research they do and how in depth they are.
Yeah, it's very good, and the chances are you'll find something in here that's sort of interest to you as a person who lives in the world, because they don't just deal with British history, they do all sorts of things. But things like Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech, Greek mythology, things about the First World War, the one about the First World War when they talked about the Eastern Front, which is the Russian side of it, the First World War, and what happened there, which I knew nothing about, because what was taught to me in school, and I did history at school, was always what happened in Western Europe. So what happened in the East, and the fact that more soldiers died in the Eastern Front that I knew nothing about was frankly staggering to me.
Yeah, no, that's fair, because we are only taught a small slither, aren't we, when we go to school, so it's a good idea.
Yeah, there you go. So the Rest is History podcast, it's well worth a listen.
Cool. So thing of the week, for me, I've put in some hardware this week. I picked up a Logitech Keys to Go. Managed to get it reduced on a second-hand website in the UK, and it was new open box. And you know what? This keyboard is so incredibly light compared to the one that comes with your iPad if you buy the Magic Folio case, because that thing is so heavy. Actually, I used this for a few days. It is really nice just to chuck in your bag with your iPad. Your bag feels so light. It cost me 50 quid. I think it's, for the money and the capability, it's a really good keyboard. Obviously, it doesn't have a trackpad, so I do lob a mouse in as well.
It's interesting, they sell a mouse with it, the Pop mouse, for $24.99. So that keyboard is, what is it, $79.99?
Yeah, I got it for 50, which you can get easily 20 quid off if you go and get it on other e-commerce websites.
And how much is the Smart Keyboard Folio or whatever it's called?
For the iPad Pro, it's about $350.
Right, so for a third of the price, you get a more flexible, lighter keyboard and a proper mouse.
That also connects to 3 different devices.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a no-brainer. You could even push the boat out and get yourself an MX Master 4, which is a truly terrific mouse, and still have a really nice portable keyboard for less money than the Apple thing, and they'd both be lighter. Yeah,
that is the thing. The weight is insane with it, and like I say, it's a nice keyboard, so that's what I will be taking with me in the future, I think.
So I have a question. It folds. Can you rest the iPad on this foldy outy bit here?
No, I do just have a normal folio on my iPad. I've had it for ages. So I just put that in the folio, and then that just sits underneath the keyboard, the flap that you see there that protects it.
Oh, nice. Good shout.
There you go. Buying advice to save some money for a change.
That's very unusual for you, Chris. That's sensible consumer advice for once.
Yeah, it makes a change. But do look out for them, new and used, because you do see a lot of things used, but by used I mean somebody's bought it and returned it, and you can often get good discounts on it.
Yep, fair enough. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
I think so. If anyone wants to get in contact with us, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Sky, where he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I'm on Mastodon, where I'm at _CJP at mastodon.social. You can watch on YouTube by going to our website, clicking on the YouTube link, or you can drop us an email, wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.